our module 2 on radiology and radiotherapy for nurses. I hope we've gone through our module 1 where we defined the key terms that are used in radiology and in radiotherapy. So in this module, we are going to build on what we have learned in module 1. In this, what are we going to look at? The first aspect that we are going to deal with is radiation physics. I am not going to give you the details and complex physics that might scare you away. It's not very necessary for your field as nurses. So in this particular tutorial or module, I am going to summarize the physics of radiation. So, who discovered the X-rays? In the year 1895, a German physicist by the name Wilhelm Conrad Roentgen discovered X-rays by chance. So, it is this man who has started the revolution of X-rays, and he transformed medical diagnosis for the better. So ever since, many lives were saved using radiation. Many lives were saved using our X-rays, using the CT machines, using fluoroscopy. So we can say that Roentgen was the grandfather of radiation. He is the grandfather of X-rays. He is the grandfather of modern day medical diagnosis. I'm going to discuss briefly on X-ray production. So how do we get X-rays, or how are they produced? The concept is very much simple. The X-ray tube provides an environment for X-ray production via a process that we call Bremsstrahlung and characteristic radiation mechanisms. So this process, which is called Bremsstrahlung, is actually a deceleration of electrons which are in motion. So when electrons are in motion or they are moving, then they decelerate. That is what is called Bremsstrahlung. So this process actually produces or is used to produce our X-rays. I'm not going to dwell more onto the equations involving this type of a mechanism or procedure, but I am going to just introduce to you in brief like this. So the classical X-ray tube so the X-ray tube is the one that we use in our departments to produce the X-rays. So the X-ray tube, it actually requires an electron source where the electrons are going to come from, because it is these electrons which, when they are decelerated, they then produce our radiation. The tubes also require an electron acceleration potential. So when I'm talking about an electrical potential, we are talking about the positive and the negative paths, whereby electrons can then move from the negative to the positive side. So if you remember your physics very well and your chemistry very well, you actually know the cathode and the anode, where we said that the anode is the positive side and then the cathode is then the negative side. So electrons, because they are negatively charged, they tend to be accelerated to move from the cathode, the negatively charged side, to the positively charged side, which is our anode. So an X-ray tube also require an electron acceleration potential. So for electrons to move from the anode to the cathode, they need an electron potential, or there has to be a potential difference between the two areas, so that electrons can actually be driven from the negative side and be attracted to the anode. So here is a characteristic or a typical X-ray tube that we have or that we use. So this model we are seeing here, we do have got this side. This is our cathode, and which is the negative side, and this side is our anode, which is the positive side. So for there to be emission of electrons from this side to that side, there is need for an electron acceleration potential. So how do we create the electron potential? We use a higher voltage source. So when we turn on the higher voltage source, what is going to happen then is that electrons, they are going to be ejected from this cathode. In this case, actually the cathode is actually made of a heated tungsten filament, which is here. So if you turn on an electric potential or a voltage here, it becomes so hot and it actually emits electrons. So the electrons are going to be accelerated towards the anode here. So during the process of acceleration, they actually lose their energy as they go and they decelerate. So the process of deceleration or reduction of speed of these electrons from the cathode to the anode is what we then term the Bremsstrahlung. So this process, when it happens, because these electrons are in motion, they've got kinetic energy, they've got energy they have. So for them to lose the speed or the energy they have, they have to release part of the energy. So when they release the energy that is released is then what we call our X-rays. So this is exactly how the X-rays are produced. High voltage electrons, or electrons moving at a high speed with higher kinetic energy, they are moving towards this side. So when they lose their speed, they release energy, which is the X-ray. So we just turn on our voltage here, and then when that is done, this tungsten filament, it produces X-rays. The X-rays are attracted by the anode, which is the positively charged. So they are attracted here, and when they come here, during the process, they decelerate, they produce X-rays. So our anode is actually the tungsten target. So the target is here, where the electrons are coming, and they are produced here. So in brief, this is exactly how we produce our radiation. That's exactly how we produce the X-rays. So when these X-rays are produced, they are now the ones which are going to penetrate your body and produce a radiography or an image that we use for diagnostic purposes. So it's just simple as that, or it's very easy as that. You just have to know that X-rays are produced, electrons are released via thermionic emission or from high voltage source. Heat is produced. When this is hot, it actually emits part of the electrons, and they are accelerated towards the anode. During the process, they lose part of their kinetic energy and they decelerate. Then during the process of deceleration, as you know that energy is neither created or destroyed, it's just converted from one form to the other. So in this instance, our energy is going to be converted from kinetic energy into the energy of radiation or the X-rays, which are going to be produced. So this is simple. This is how X-rays are produced. So in brief or in summary, this is the physics of radiation. I'm not going to delve more and give you the cumbersome equations, because some of you are still learning. You might run away and think that nursing is all that difficult. So these are the basics. We need you to know the dangers of radiation. We also need you to know the basics of how you can take precautions against radiation, and also protect your own patients. So, what are the precautions against radiation? Again, there are lots and lots of protective mechanism that we can actually apply or employ. But I'm here going to simplify the precautions that you can also do or that you can undertake during the examinations when you bring patients to the department. So to start with, this is our radiation sign. So you can see if you are moving around the hospital or the hospitals, there are different signs, but this is a red sign that you actually see or find in the radiology department or in some mines. So this is an indicator that you are now entering a radiation zone. So we must then take the precautions. We are not saying run away from radiation. Radiation is here. It has got its own merits and its own demerits. It has saved many lives in as much as it has caused harm to many lives as well. So we have to learn to live in symbiosis or to live in harmony with radiation. So what do you do to protect yourself and the patient against radiation? So the first thing that you're supposed to do is keeping the time of exposure to a minimum. So we are saying that when someone is exposing or when there's radiation exposure, it has to be kept to the minimum as much as possible. So we are now saying, we're talking about what is called dose optimization. So we are saying we have to limit or to minimize the dose that the patient or the people around are receiving. So we must just minimize the time of exposure to radiation. At the same time, one has to maintain distance from the source of the radiation. So we are saying the further away you are from the radiation source, the more you get protected against radiation. Because radiation is actually inversely proportional to the distance from the source of radiation. So we are saying when you are far away from the source of radiation, you are safe. So in as much as you want to go to the radiology department, also maintain distance from the source of radiation. The other precaution that you have to undertake is, when appropriate, placing a shield between yourself and the source. So we are saying when you go to the radiology department or when you are going to have the visit to the radiology department, you are going to see different types of shields which can be used. Actually, at the control panel where the person exposing is with the controls, actually there is a panel that is there that also is used to shield against radiation. The doors and the walls of a radiology building, they are also coated with a thin layer of lead that can actually be used to absorb part of the radiation so that we minimize radiation transmission to unnecessary targets. The other precaution that you need to take is protect yourself against radioactive contamination by using proper protective clothing. So as what you are seeing here, these are part of the aprons that people used to put on or to wear when they are in a radiological room or when they are handling patients who need radiological examinations. I'm going to show you, or when you go to the radiology departments, on various radiology departments, you're going to see the different shields which are used there. We also have got the gonad shields, and also our patients or the people who work in the radiology departments, they also have to be protected as much as possible. So when the patient is being examined, all other regions which are not being examined, they have to be protected or shielded from radiation. There is also a collimator or a control that is used on the machine to protect or to minimize radiation to the relevant area or region. So let's say you want to do an x-ray of the arm. There is a way you control the light, what you call the collimator, so that we only direct radiation to the target tissue only, and then you spare the rest of the body which is not necessary. However, it doesn't mean that when you have exposed only the relevant portion, the patient and the people around are not then exposed to radiation. Radiation travels in a straight line, and then when it meets some boundaries, it can actually undergo reflection in the boundary. So it can actually move from one point to the other, or from one end to another, by a process of reflection. So it can come back after hitting a boundary, then you can actually be exposed. So there's need beyond and above protection and collimation. There's also need for you to maintain distance, even if radiation is not pointing your way. So this is just an example. The source of radiation and where someone is, there has to be, the bigger the distance, the lesser the danger or the harm to radiation, or the lesser the dose that this person is going to receive. As I said, radiation is inversely proportional to the square of the distance from the source. So the further away you are, the better you are protected against radiation contamination. So the last aspect of the day, but which is not the least, is we are going to talk about radiological machines in different procedures. Again, I'm going to summarize this. I don't need you to be loaded with so much junk and unnecessary information. I need you to have an appreciation of the different procedures and machines which are used at a radiology department. Not all machines that are used at the radiology department produce radiation. So some, they are radiation free, but there are also other precautions that you have to take when you are in the radiology department with those types of machines. So the first machine that produces radiation that I have spoken about and that I'm now talking about again is our X-ray machine. So basically an X-ray machine is used to actually image the various parts of the body. It sees better those portions of the body which are actually radio opaque. So which are the radio opaque areas in our body? So we are now talking about our bones. So when someone is going to suspected fractures of the bones, when we are suspecting dislocation of the disc in the spine, when we are suspecting some fractures, skull fractures, whatever, we are using the X-rays to advantage, because it can actually visualize, or can be used to visualize radio opaque areas. So we are using the radiolucent areas as the contrast to see the differences. So this is our X-ray. So there are various procedures which are done using our X-rays. You know them with time. When you are going to be referred to your radiology department, also have a look at the indications in the patient's notes to see, why am I taking this patient, what exactly is going to be done. Is it an abdominal X-ray? Is it a pelvic X-ray? Just like that. So you appreciate why they choose this type of a procedure. So the other procedure as well that uses radiation is CT. CT actually uses higher doses of radiation than our X-ray. So this is a typical CT machine. Unlike these X-rays, this actually has got a higher resolution, and it can actually take different slices of the of images from different slices of a section or cross-section of the body. So you appreciate this one also, how it works. So the patient lies here, and you can see the gantry here. Then the patient is then pushed into the gantry. Then there's going to be rotation. They are imaging parts or portions which are inside here that actually rotates and then takes the image of a patient. Then the images are going to be processed, and they can come as slices, cross-sectional, longitudinal, in whatever view. So this is actually connected to a computer system where you can actually manipulate the images that you need. So this one has got a superior resolution as compared to our X-ray, and it can actually acquire many images at the same time, and you can actually edit the machines using your computer system, unlike our X-ray machines or the procedures that we do. The other type of a machine that also produces radiation is our fluoroscope machine. This fluoroscope machine as well, it works almost like what happens with our CT. It actually has got this computer system where you can actually visualize the portion that you're imaging. You can actually see it inside, or you can see a video of the area that you're acquiring. So you can actually use this one in real time. Basically, these fluoroscope machines They are used in theater, where you actually need to see the certain sections if you are going straight to the portion that you actually need. So with the aid of a fluoroscope machine, we can actually guide different procedures in theater. So let us now come to non-radiation producing machines. This is an instance or an example. This is our very nice MRI machine. As you can see from the configuration, it's almost similar to a CT machine. However, the major difference between an MRI machine and a CT machine is this doesn't use X-ray. It uses very powerful magnets which are used here, which are housed in here. So the magnets are the ones which are then used to acquire or to produce our images using different dipoles that can be produced in the different elements inside your bodies. I'm not going to dwell much into the nitty-gritties of this again, but here we're using a magnet, unlike the X-ray. So we don't have the danger or the hazard of radiation when you're using MRI, which is our magnetic resonance imaging. So with magnetic resonance imaging, the major precaution that you have to do is you must make sure that you don't take couches which are metallic in here, or your coins, or you don't have to bring a patient with metallic objects, be it implants like the pacemakers. Actually, this has got very powerful magnets, the higher Teslas. So what happens when you bring a metallic object, it's going to fly. If you are bringing a patient on a couch, it can actually fly into the gantry of the MRI machine. So it can actually kill a patient as well who is on a pacemaker. So those are the procedures, the precautions that one has to take when taking a patient to an MRI room. So this is the most used non-radiation procedure that we have, which is called US, which is ultrasound. So ultrasound, actually we are using sound to produce our images. As you know, or if they have spoken to you before, that your sound is actually produced by radiation using a medium. So ultrasound, we use different transducers. You will appreciate them one day when you visit the radiology department. So those transducers are the ones which are going to produce sound, and then that sound is directed to the human body. Then it's going to be reflected back through a reverberation. So when sound is reflected back, the intensity of the signal that is coming back is the one that is then used to record an image. So you can actually see a nice image here that is produced from the reflected signal that is coming back, and with different intensities. So different body parts have got different densities. So the different densities as well can also be used to make a contrast or a difference between the different sections. So there are higher dense areas which actually absorb much of the signal that is produced or the beam that is coming back. So those ones, they can actually present with not clear areas, and then there are areas which actually don't absorb much of the beam that is coming back, and then they produce an area with a high intensity of our sound. So this is how this works. You're going to see this when you go to the radiology department, or at the end of the module, when I'm going to take my group to the radiology department. I'm going to explain to you what I'm talking about, the concept of sound actually being used to producing an image. This is very amazing. This is very amazing beyond measure. So in brief, or in a nutshell, this is our module 2. I hope we are growing in interest in radiology, and I hope we are going to enjoy the last module of our course, and then we are going to become better citizens of our healthcare systems, citizens who cannot harm themselves against radiation, citizens who cannot threaten patients over radiation, citizens who can also protect your clients or your patients against radiation. You must be armed with this information. You must share it with caution if you are going to say that radiation kills, radiation is dangerous, you are not going to see patients to the radiology department, you scare them away. Radiation is got both beneficial and harmful effects. Just like the food that you eat. When you're eating food, you must eat the right quantities. Otherwise, the same type of food that you eat can actually poison you when you eat it irresponsibly. So here, we are establishing a threshold, we are establishing a standard where we say that this amount of radiation is actually beneficial. So, radiation is the greatest gift from God to mankind because it has saved many lives. It is in the hands of a careless practitioner that we are worried, and that's why we are teaching you radiology and radiotherapy as nurses. I thank you all. If you have got questions, feel free. You can contact me, then we can talk. Be blessed. Thank you so much.